Squeeze.
Squeeze.
Hey, it's the clown posse.
Thursday night, bring your nose to the plaza
All right, you can take it off.
at 4.
Huh? I like it.
Thursday night, bring your nose to the plaza at 4.
4 o'clock. Okay.
No danglish. I do?
No nose
How
goblins.
many beans you have?
I think I can hit Richard.
We're live, Madam Mayor.
Delicious.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this Tuesday, May 23rd, City Commission work session to order and ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Mayor Pam Triolo.
Here.
Vice Mayor Scott Maxwell.
Here.
Commissioner Omari Hardy.
Here.
Commissioner Andy Amoroso.
Here.
Commissioner Herman Robinson.
Here.
If everyone would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, led by the Vice Mayor.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As I mentioned before, too, right before the meeting started, we will be taking public comment. So if you have anything that you'd like to say, there are blue cards in the back. Again, make sure to fill out your name and your address, and you will need to state that when you come up to the microphone to speak for public record. Thank you all very much, and thank you so much for coming. We're going to talk with the one item on the agenda, which is updates, future action, direction. Item 3A, presentation by Kimley Horn regarding the condition of the pool. City Manager?
Madam Mayor, let me do a brief lead-in if I could. And I was asked, since this is a discussion about the pool at the beach, to first start by reminding everybody in our charter language that city-owned property east of A1A roadway shall not be declared surplus property, shall not be sold, hypothecated, conveyed, or leased except for a lease of less than 20 years without the affirmative vote of the majority of the electors of the city of Lake Worth at a properly noticed and scheduled referendum. So in other words, we always start these discussions, we're not ever trying to sell the beach or to give it away in any way, shape, or form. So that's the first level. The second
Thank you.
thing is, this is your staff coming to you, representing the owners of this facility, to try to come up with some solutions and ideas and concepts as the owners. There's not any third parties involved here or any P3s or anything. So I want to make sure everybody understands that's where we're coming from as well. So with that out of the way, remind you that last year we had a consultant come in, Bob McAllister, who did a study on the facility looking at issues we were having at the pool itself, the pool pump house, the bathhouse, and he issued a report that was presented to you that sort of said we've got issues in these areas, and then went on at our request to give you some potential options. That was presented, and out of that meeting, since then the pool had been closed because we had problems with the pump house falling in. We wanted to go to the next level of expertise and actually bring in engineers. We thought it was appropriate, based on what data you had received from him about different issues, to have somebody come and say structurally, what are we looking at here with these different issues, and does it comply with the types of information you receive from the pool expert? So we reached out to Kimley Horn, who's one of the engineering firms that we have. We had selected through a selection process not NAACP, CCNA. I've been in government too long, I get too many acronyms. To come in and actually use their expertise to do an assessment and to report back to you. It's our hope after this presentation that we can have a discussion about where you want us to go next as staff. So without any further ado, I'm going to bring up David Stewart, who's here with Angelina Fairchild, who works for the firm of Kimley Horn. And they're going to give you a report quickly, I think a 10-minute report, exactly on their findings.
Okay. Just to remind my fellow commissioners, if we can just, even though it's a workshop, we ask questions one at a time. Okay, so just wait to be recognized and then you can ask your question. But I want to make sure that we're not all talking over each other. And remember too that when you have your public comment cards in, it's 2 minutes. And please don't think I'm rude when I say thank you. Thank you. Because your 2 minutes are up, okay? It goes something like that. Thank you. All right. Vice Mayor?
Thank you. So with that also, your comment also mean that we should hold our comments till after the presentation?
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. Come on down.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, and Commissioners. I'm Dave Stewart, my associate Angelina Fairchild. We are both structural engineers with Kinley Horn. We have both worked in the West Palm Beach office for over 30 years.
Could I trouble you to actually maybe hold the microphone, just because it's kind of low and it's not capturing your voice properly? I want to make sure everyone watching at home can hear clearly.
Don't want to get too much feedback, but how, is that better?
Yeah, that's perfect.
All right.
Thank you.
It was our assignment to review the swimming pool facilities and the buildings associated with it, primarily from a structural perspective, but also to consider other code issues that could be applicable to the continued use of those buildings. The codes that we looked at included the Florida Building Code, the Florida State Department of Health, and a model aquatic health code, which has not been adopted by the state of Florida, but it can be used for guidance on other parameters that are not specifically covered by the state health department codes.
Speak straight into the mic.
Straight into the
There
mic.
you
Okay,
go.
the presentation that we have here, is that a presentation that's going to be on screen?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Is it on screen? It's not on screen. I just want to make sure that everyone can see before we get
Darian's
started.
got it.
There it is.
It's up.
Okay,
Oh, there you go.
There it is.
okay. And go to the first page, because that was what was just covered. There we go.
So, also included in our evaluation was to recommend remedies for deficiencies, substantial deficiencies that were found, as well as provide an opinion of probable cost to correct those deficiencies and estimate the remaining service life of the various elements of the project. Angelina? As an overall site plan, the main pool, of course, is the most recognizable feature. In this view, north is to the left, the ocean is to the top of the figure. So the pool restrooms are to the east of the main pool. That building was built in two separate phases, and we've referred in our report to the north portion as the pool restrooms because they serve the pool bathers, and the southern portion is the beach restrooms that are open to the public using the beach. On the west side of the pool is the pool filtration equipment room, which serves the sanitation recirculation system for the pool. And to the north is a small wading pool, which also shares the same equipment as the main pool. Surrounding the pool is the pool deck, which is a level walking and sunbathing area. And all of those elements were included in our evaluation and will be discussed in this presentation. The main lap pool, the most important feature in my discussion is the area of the main lap pool. It's 12,300 square feet. And that area is one of the parameters that help define how many people could utilize that pool. Presently, the capacity of the pool is posted by the health department at 315 bathers. Based on the capacity of the filtration equipment, the health department would allow as many as 417 bathers. And based on the size of the pool, just the surface area of the pool, model aquatic health code could allow as many as 605 bathers in that pool. But for right now, it is posted at 315. The structural deficiencies were, I'll say, absent from the main lap pool. We did not find indications that there are structural problems with the reinforced concrete shell of the pool. We did find that the return piping, based on observations and reports from city staff, is losing about 15,000 gallons per day. The water level is dropping 2 inches per day, down to about 16 inches below the gutter line. At that point, the leakage stops, which gives us an indication as to at what elevation that leak is occurring in the underground piping. The finishes of the pool appear in fairly good condition, but with sounding, with testing, we found that about 30% of the Marsite finish is debonded, And in time, those loose areas will crack and come loose and create rough edges that are a hazard to the users of the pool. There are also cracked tiles along the water line, suggesting movement between the walls of the pool and the coping. That's not a structural issue, but it is something that you would want to correct if you were refinishing the pool. The underwater lighting system is leaking, and when next opportunity to reseal those, they should be resealed or replaced as part of an overall renovation program. The pool deck, also an important area, 15,250 square feet. The size of the pool deck helps govern how many people could comfortably utilize this. Health Department does not have a criteria, but the Model Aquatic Health Code would limit the usage to about 305 persons, which is in good agreement with the posted capacity of 315 persons in the pool. The only deficiency that we're attributing to the pool deck itself is that the drains along the east side between the pool and the restroom building are not operable. They are plugged, and repeated attempts to free them have not restored the drainage in that area, and so that would be something that would need to be corrected in the very near future. The restrooms that serve the pool with an area of approximately 3,000 square feet. Based on the existing fixtures, the toilets and sinks and showers within that area, the pool restrooms are sized to serve about a 10,000 square foot pool, which is about 25% or 20% less than the actual pool area. So, as of today, the restrooms do not have enough fixtures to properly serve that pool. But what is deficient in the way of fixtures, and I'll jump down to the bottom of that slide, in the women's room, if we added one toilet stall and then corrected the ADA toilet dimensions, and in the men's room, if we added 3 sinks, then the number of fixtures would be adequate for the size of the main pool. So while it doesn't meet it today, it's not a tremendous plumbing effort to bring up the capacity there. The building itself, structurally, is in fair to good condition, considering its age. The bearing walls and the structural foundations do not appear to have significant issues. The structural concrete roof is in fairly good shape as well. There has been some continued maintenance by the city staff along the east edge, but the location of those repairs does not indicate a serious problem with the roof structure. So in this report, our recommendation is not to replace the roof structure, but to go ahead and replace the roof covering because of old leaks that have occurred and because of the worn condition that the roof covering is currently in. Removing the roof covering would also allow a thorough inspection on the top side of the structural concrete roof, which would further which would add additional confidence that there is significant service life left in that part of the structure. The beach restrooms on the south end of that building, about 1,624 square feet. The beach restrooms are in good condition. They've recently had lavatories and countertops replaced. They are clean, they are well lit. No significant issues from a structural standpoint. They do have the same worn roof cover as the rest of the pool restrooms, so we would want to replace those as part of the same project. One bullet that is missing from the slide but is included in our report is there are some minor mechanical and plumbing issues, adjusting the height of a floor drain, replacing insulation on some pipes, and providing some mechanical ventilation in a utility space. But those are small issues relative to the size of the beach restrooms. The filter equipment and chlorine buildings are a significant feature of this site. The size of that building in its filtration capacity of about 2,000 gallons per minute is what sets the capacity of the pool by health department standards. And so It is the 2,000 gallons per minute, which sets the capacity of the main pool at 417 persons, which is more than the posted capacity. So the pool filtration equipment, as designed, has adequate capacity, and if there has been a loss of capacity over time due to deterioration of pumps or in some way the controls, there is some reserve capacity that can cover the current occupancy. The structural issues of the pool filter equipment building are fairly substantial. The roof structure is falling on the undersurface due to corrosion of the reinforcing steel. The area that is affected is more than 25%, no, more than 30% of the total roof area, and the Florida Building Code then puts us into a different category. With that degree of deterioration, we would have to do a detailed structural evaluation in order to prove that the existing structure has capacity to remain in service. Unfortunately, this is a pre-stressed concrete roof system, and once the concrete has spalled from the bottom and you lose the bond between the steel and the concrete, the steel relaxes, and so the structure loses the pre-stress force that was originally installed in it. So repair on something on this type of work is extremely difficult. In this case, it would make a lot more sense to replace that roof system with a new product in order to correct that structural deficiency. Because we're replacing the roof structure, we would also have to replace the roof cover in order to waterproof it. The other significant deficiency in this building is the interior piping. By virtue of its age, it's pushing 40 years old. It's been repaired in a number of locations. It's been relined in certain locations. The condition of the pipe is very near the end of its useful service life. If we were talking 20 years old, then we might be talking about continuing to repair and maintain what's there. But with 40-year-old piping, it's time to consider just remove and replace all of that piping. Now, the pump equipment can be rebuilt and refurbished and put back and maintained in service. The heaters in the building were replaced in 2008, and so they are on a different service life cycle than the structure itself and the interior piping. So we've identified both of those as being significant items with the filter building. In the next slide, we have summarized Kimley-Horn's opinion of the probable cost to correct the deficiencies by the recommendations that are in our report. We have had a discussion with city staff about that total figure of $509,000. The city has received information from other sources, including the McAllister report last year, as well as conversations with local pool contractors that suggest that costs may be higher than what Kimley-Horn is showing here. Knowing that, I still stand by my numbers. These numbers are based on our takeoff of quantities involved, based on the recommendations that we have to repair the building, and utilizes unit prices that are based on a national database for construction of this type. So as a professional engineer, you asked me what I think it would cost, and those are the numbers I think we should talk about in terms of budgeting repairs. I'll stop there and go to the next slide. The service life of the facility is, unfortunately, it's a simple question with a complicated answer. Because we have 2 pools involved, several buildings involved, and the structure of the building and what's inside the building have different service lives. But to try to bring it all home, with the repairs that are recommended in our report, you would restore all of the structures to a 10 to 20 year service life. The mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems, with repairs, would generally get you into a 10-year service life. There are a number of finished materials and interior elements that are never intended to last 20 years. They would be things that would be routinely replaced in a 5-year time frame. So they can be updated now, but you're not going to get 20 years out of a coat of paint. You won't get 20 years out of toilet partitions in a public restroom. So in general, the service life of the buildings and facilities with repairs can be extended into a 10 or 20-year time frame. I want to point out that we're not building new pools and new buildings for these kind of prices. What we are essentially doing is taking a 40-year clock and we're turning it back 10 to 20 years so that the facility would still have the same pool configuration, same filtration system, and would be available to continue to serve the same functions that it was originally designed for. Beyond the scope of the structural engineering evaluation, there are some important considerations that we wanted to bring to your attention. Our report does not address the functional design and layout of the pool. We compared the pool as it exists against its original design in 1971. So it has it was designed for that configuration, and we looked at what it would take to continue to use it in that capacity, in that configuration. An important permitting consideration is the location of the coastal construction control line. And Angelina, if we can just click one slide down. This graphic with north to the left shows a red line running parallel with the ocean. That is the state's coastal construction control line. Construction east of that line towards the ocean requires a significant permitting effort. Essentially, if your building already exists that close to the water, you are allowed to repair it and maintain it and continue that building. But to make improvements or to expand east of that line requires a significant permitting effort. The position of that line, cutting the main pool in half, it puts the deck and the pool filtration building west of that line. And so you can continue to maintain and you can maintain and repair those facilities without the need for a state permit. And it will be easier to make expansions or alterations on those portions that are west of that line. If we could go back, Angelina, one slide. Flood elevations, we did not check the flood maps. The only building that would be at risk would be the pool filtration building. Palm Beach County flood maps are currently in the process of being revised, and it's something that should be kept track of. When the new flood elevations are set, there may need to be additional modifications to that pool filtration building in order to dry flood-proof it. In the event of a storm, there are measures that can be taken to flood-proof a building of that type. Programmatic and functional changes. A lot of discussion with city staff. Our own observations show us that this pool was designed in 1971, and it looks just like a pool should have been built. That should have been built in 1971. But we have not looked at the draw, the public the public use of this facility, and all of the different options that might be considered in terms of increasing the demand of the public for the use, and things that can be done in order to update and improve the maintenance performance of this site. And then lastly, financial feasibility. If we don't know, well, within the scope of our structural evaluation, we don't have the records, the use of the building, what costs have been associated with the building, so we are not in a position to do that. But going forward, the financial feasibility of the facility as it exists, as well as any alternate layouts, would need to be considered. And I think that gets us to possibilities. One option is to turn back the clock and repair the facility back to its original design, get the service life back into something reasonable, and continue to enjoy the facility as it is for the next decade or so. Other possibilities include reconfiguring the existing bathroom buildings. Consider that to be an enclosed floor space that you own east of the coastal construction control line. And there are portions of that building that are not being used for restrooms. They're being used for offices and lifeguard support room, cashier's office, things like that. And so you could perhaps move those features someplace else in order to free up space and give that footprint to a building architect and see what can be done about turning it into a more modern and inviting facility. You can consider reducing the pool limits. We currently have the site pool deck is a limiting factor right now. The size of the pool can support a larger bathing population than the area of the deck around it. The pool filtration system is balanced for the pool of the current size. If you were to put in a smaller pool, you would then put in a smaller filtration system, which would reduce the cost of that, and you could expand the deck inward, stay within the same footprint so that you reduce your permitting obstacles, and get the size of the deck more balanced with the size of the pool. Expansion to the west. You're outside the CCL to the west, so if you want to consider new building space, expanding the deck, going west would have an easier permitting path than doing anything east of the CCL. And then there's vertical expansion. You have a footprint in place. It's a hardscape. Putting a second floor above the restrooms, putting a second level on the deck is a way of increasing the floor space and allowing more room for people, and still stay within the confines of the original 1971 design. I think that is my last slide, and Angelina and I are happy to take questions or call back when needed.
Just one question. We had been told before the filtration was inadequate, meaning that the water that we were losing on it, one of the things that struck me in the last conversation that we had, that the water we were losing was not basically purifying enough. So if you talk about you can have up to 417 people, that it would be a health hazard based on the current situation that was going on there and the amount of water that we're losing in the filtration. Is that true?
That is true, because the losing that much water and having to replace that water each day affects the chemical balance. The city water that you're using does not have chlorine in it, and it has various other elements that dissolve solids that are going to affect the pH of the pool and affect the chlorine stabilization. And so you are constantly putting chemicals in, trying to balance the pool. And it only takes a few hours for it to go out of balance. Between sundown and sunrise, the water can go out of balance if it's not stabilized. And so just losing that 2 inches a day and having to replace it is a challenge, filtration challenge.
And that's at maximum capacity, because we have had under capacity usage in the past, so that it's not that volume. I'm just trying to find out if we were to have that volume, it would be dangerous, or if we, at what level does it become dangerous?
Well, a swimming pool is going to evaporate 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch of water every day, just every day. And so we'll call that normal. In Florida in the summer, we get more than a 1/2 inch of rain, in many weeks we will get 1 to 2 inches of rain, and that replenishes it. So that would be considered normal operation to have to manage the pool with that type of water flux. We're talking about 4 times that rate, and so it can go past a tipping point if you manage it Monday through Friday, and then you're not on top of it Saturday, Sunday. When you come back Monday morning, you can have lost your chemical balance, and then you struggle for a day or two to get it back.
Any questions? and I'll go to public comment. Alice Mann, followed by Kathy Berger.
Hi, I'm Alice Mann. I live at 518 North Federal Highway. I didn't get to ask any questions of the gentleman, but I was wondering if there's any consideration about a geothermal system. I just learned recently that the Lake Lidle pool is a geothermal pool. So that makes a big difference, probably in the construction that added to the cost, but for upkeep and maintenance, they say it greatly reduces the cost. And I also wondered about the saltwater pool. So then I'll go to my other comments that I wrote down. I think, for me anyway, and a lot of people that I know and people I know in the pool who we are now kind of squatting over at Lake Lidle. But it's really a quality of life issue, and I've talked to several of you about this, that many of us chose where we are living because we knew that this pool was here. And I use it for rehab, and a lot of other people that I know do the same. So, I know last time we had a huge crowd here when we talked about the pool, but I know a number of people are away, so unfortunately they're not getting to comment. But I think that one thing that was mentioned was maybe a smaller pool. If we had a smaller pool, that would take out a lot of the income. As I understand, it comes from swim teams who, particularly, I think it's Aquatech. I'm not sure of the name, but there's one team that's there, had been there a lot, and they've relocated and they would like to come back. So I was over at Lake Lidle, and 2 busloads of preschool kids were bussed in. And they went and they used a cute little kiddie pool at Lake Lidle. And I thought, why don't we have that? And what I've seen here as a major problem is that there's no marketing done of this pool, and that in the past it was used to much greater degree. And I really think it is critical for our town and for our quality of life. And I guess I just have little stories about lots of people that I've spoken to. And one was a lifeguard on our beach right here. And he said that he used to, as a kid, go on the tunnel, that there was a tunnel that went under the casino. And if the weather was, the ocean was choppy or there was dangerous marine life, the kids would just run under that tunnel and go right into the pool. And now I don't see anything that's welcoming in the pool. People don't even know that the pool's there. So I think we need a design that shows the public the pool and a strong marketing program for it. And that's as far as my voice will go today.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Kathy Berger, Or maybe would you like me to read it? I'll be more than happy to read it. No worries. The pool will be and has been a great asset. It's very important for the children to learn to swim and have a positive recreational experience. Thank you. Felice Hirschberger, would you like me to read it too?
I too don't want to talk. Yeah, thank you.
What is the cost of water park versus paint and repair? We haven't even gone in water park direction.
There was a water park thing
Oh, it's just someone showing what.
in the air.
It was because somebody showed what another city did, and everyone thought that was what we were talking about. Yeah, no,
Thank you.
you're very welcome. Katie McGivern.
I tried to write clearly.
Yeah, I can. Please fix our pool. It's one of the reasons that people like to live in Lake Worth. Joan Farrell, would you like me to read?
Please.
You got it. Please repair our pool. It's a jewel of the city, and if marketed better, for swim meets, parties, events. Revenues could help pay for the repairs, which would be far less costly than an aquatic park. Janet Levinera, do you like to speak? Followed by Shona Dick.
Good evening. My name is Janet Lavanera. I live on 223 North K Street. And this is my first meeting since the new commission, so I want to say welcome. It looks wonderful. I just have a couple things I would like to say. One is that I'm encouraged by the report. I came here really with my fingers crossed and knowing there could be a lot of consideration. So I'm very encouraged to hear that it sounds better than I expected. I am a member of the pool group that is not, there's a few of us. I just, want to say, one is that the pool is, without any exaggeration, one of the big reasons that I chose Lake Worth 2 years ago. I mentioned before in one of these meetings, I did look in other towns, and I did come from a cute little suburb in Connecticut, and so moving to Lake Worth was a big challenge. It was a challenge for me to consider it to begin with. I guess that's not the wrong word. But my sister took me on a tour of the town, showed me first Benny's. We went for breakfast. We then took a walk on the beach. We then took a look at the pool. We then took a little drive through town, and we went over to the golf course, because I'm a pack golfer. So she said, why would you want to live in PGA when you then couldn't afford to take the golf lessons that you want to take to learn how to golf? So it's how I learned and made my choice to move to Lake Worth. So the pool was number 2, probably, of all of my reasons. I have made most of my friends in town from the pool, and many of them, we mean a lot to each other. I guess there's just no other way to say it. We're now hiking all the way to Lake Lytle to go, and we still have been showing up, about 30 of us every time.
Thank you.
And unless you go to the swim classes, you can't fathom how fantastic it is.
Thank you so much.
And that's it.
Thank you.
I didn't realize I was out of time.
I'm sorry.
I can keep going.
That little beaver.
So I'm hoping we'll repair and or improve a couple real quick things.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Shona Dick, followed by Peggy Fisher.
Hi, everyone, again. Thank you very much for this line of, opening this up and researching this part. It means a lot. I'm from the drowning prevention perspective. I'm from the education perspective and helping go further with the pool than we have done, obviously, in the last 10 years. And I want to offer you my support and a lot of other people's support in helping, should we reopen this amazing pool. I want to offer the support in terms of bringing that in and getting the kids involved and turning this into a educational, water-safe city. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much. Peggy Fisher?
Peggy Fisher, 508 North A Street. I agree with everyone who loves the pool. My questions are more about the conflicting information we have heard over time about the condition of the pool and the pool buildings. Your Director of Community Sustainability, Mr. Waters, said the pool building was basically condemned. And now we can throw a couple $100,000 in it, and it has 20 more years. There are some tough questions that, beyond the feel good about having the pool, I look to you all to ask and get right. We have a problem at our casino building because those tough questions weren't really dealt with. And we can't find ourselves in a similar situation with the pool and the pool buildings. That red line should have impacted us with the casino building, and we should have done that right. And so I'm looking to all of you to ask, all the different sources of information, and we've got a lot of range of how much it's going to cost, and to look not just at one expert here or one expert there, but everyone and staff included. Thank you.
I would just want to say, city manager, that would be my biggest concern with all of this. Again, when I got elected years ago now, the beach casino building construction was already done. And it was my job to find the money and get the $6 million back from the county that we almost lost so that we could all get the thing open. And it was, everything, the plans were already pretty much laid in stone at that point. I questioned a lot of things about the project at that time. I know others did as well. My concern is just the things that I realized. When I first got here, there were pieces of the pool building that were actually falling down and falling off, and I mean, like, they had to tape them and then glue them and then shellac them and then paint them, and then they still fell off later. So, I mean, I don't know what part of your structural report that means, only because I saw those things. I remember Mr. Waters saying that the buildings were condemned, and I'm just confused because seeing 3 separate reports from $500,000 to $5 million or 4-point-something million dollar, whatever it may be, that's a lot of wiggle room I'm kind of uncomfortable with.
Let me see if I can help clarify.
Okay.
As best I can. First off, the pieces falling off the building, I think the engineer and David addressed that. On the pool building itself, the pre-stressed members that make up the roof stick out past the sidewalk areas, and they were originally intended to provide an overhang and some shade. The exposure to water and salt over the years, they started spalling on the ends and had been cut off, I think, a couple of times. So when the casino opened, we were looking at that building. It had not been really addressed in any of the construction, any of the repairs, and we were like, this looks really bad next to the other building. Let's make it look at least presentable. So we had almost 2 feet cut off the end with a concrete saw. They pulled the roofing back, repaired it, took the stone off the building that was all falling off, and painted it. He's confirming that what he's seen is the structural integrity of those beams are okay. The cancerous ends had to be removed, and he believes that underneath the roof layment and everything else, that structurally that envelope is sound. It's good for another 20 years at least. So that's that one issue. The comments, I'm assuming you want me to continue
Please
as far
do,
as...
yes, thank you.
Mr. Waters stated during discussions, I'm trying to remember what meeting that was, that the pool bathhouse had been part of the condemnation notice for the old casino building. And it's best my recollection and understanding that that was included by the engineering firms and the design firms in that calculation, so that they could come up with a formula to keep the casino building where it is and call it a restoration.
Right.
And it wouldn't necessitate the permitting process because you are on one side of the coast, or things like the pilings. If you built this building new, you would most likely be required to have done a lot of extra work and things, and it may not have been permitted, possibly. I don't want to make that, but in order to come up with the calculation so that they could come up with the proper percentages to meet the intent of the state law and the building official to make a determination that it was a restoration, I believe they had to include the square footage and size of the pool building. I don't know that that statement, it was condemned, meant he's wrong. I think it was more a calculation of convenience, possibly, to say this is a way we can get this building restored without having to build new. And that's, I wasn't here, so that's my best understanding, and someone correct me if I'm totally wrong, but I think that's the context in Mr. Waters' statement.
Okay.
Was there any other piece that I could clarify, Mayor?
No, I just wanted to answer the question that was directed toward the experts was geothermal system and saltwater pool. I guess the geothermal, I'm not familiar with that.
Well, we didn't ask the engineer to do anything other than to look at the current configuration, as he said, compared to its original design intent. I think the hope is coming out of this meeting that staff might get some sense of the commission, if y'all want to move forward in some manner, that those kinds of design decisions and operational costs and technologies that are available, and depending upon, again, you're going to have to weigh everything against how you're going to pay for it, would be thrown into that hopper and considered by the design professionals, the engineers, design discussions with you. So it's something I don't know that it's appropriate really to address, but I think that if you did move forward with a new facility
We
or a
could discuss those things.
those kinds of things would be considered.
Okay, speaking of that specifically, I'd like to just advise the commission. Let's try to, there's two things to think about at this point. One is we're right in the middle of budget cycle, and we just had a meeting, so we know the numbers of our beach operation, and we know how much it costs to operate the pool, and how the expenses don't cover. We know all those numbers. That's one conversation, the budget for itself. The other conversation is the pool itself. Today's workshop is on a presentation on the status of the pool and what is really wrong with it. From my personal opinion, I've stated here for years how I love the pool, and I used to use it all the time before I became a public figure. I had to go down there in my bathing suit all the time. I wasn't comfortable with that. But anyway, I absolutely adore the pool. I know why a lot of people moved here for it, and they adore it too. The usage, and I'm going to be devil's advocate here. I have no opinion. Well, you know what my opinion is. It was in the paper today, but I'm going to try to play devil's advocate here. We know what the financial picture is, and it's not rosy. We know now what the pool situation is, and according to this report, it's not as bad as I anticipated that it would be, to be very honest with you. We know that to many people who are currently utilizing the pool isn't open in enough hours. Right now, it's not open in convenient times for people who work. It's not open on those things, and it's already losing a lot of money. On the other side, what do you want it to be? I've heard from a lot of people saying, don't change it, leave it just the way it is. Could you leave some of the lanes for swimming, and could you make it a zero entrance pool for the kids so the parents could be with their kids, and maybe fill it up in the middle where it was a diving section so that the exercise people could have a nice level ground to do rehab. And I mean, I've heard all kinds of things. I've been requested everything. Then people said, no, put a splash pad in there somewhere, or put this there and add that, and that's what the kids want, so I've heard just about everything. The good news for me is that a fix of the current pool configuration is not as bad a Band-Aid, but remember that it is a Band-Aid, than it is. We also have to be, I think, mature about this, in that there are many things that, again, I don't think anybody up here except maybe the vice mayor, who was very vocal about his not liking it, were happy about some of the things that happened when the casino building was created as a business model. So are there things lacking right now that we need? We know that our staff has told us that they need, first of all of our banquet planning people don't have any place they have no offices. The lifeguards squish themselves into one little tiny place. They have no place, no thing to do anything. We've got no supply closet. When we rent out that space on the top floor, when that whole situation is fixed, all those people that have been using that empty space for office space through this whole configuration are going to have to go bye-bye. So where do they go? I mean, we have some very real needs. I know we have garbage needs in the back. We have trucks that come to deliver to restaurants that block the rights of people on the beach every day when they're bringing stuff there, because they never created a formal drop-off. And we have parking issues. So it's kind of like one of those things. Do we say, hey, I'm putting it all out there. Do we say, okay, well, we know we don't have money, but we could do this, and we could figure out ways to market it better, and let's make the fixes now and see what we have now and just get it going and try to rebuild the as is and get it fixed? Or do we say, hey, let's take the money, invest, and create a destination that's going to bring in money? I mean, I've had restaurateurs say, well, can't I put a Cheeky Hut out there somewhere, and why can't we rent chairs out there and lounge chairs? And and umbrellas and all kinds of things so we can enjoy the pool all around and make money, and that'll support the operation of the pool. You know, I've had a lot of great ideas. You know, why not do a kind of a combination of all of them? And I just thought the reason I'm having this and I'm being so long-winded today is that I want us all to have a conversation about what we can do to look at the whole picture. Oh, I love that music. Let's look at the whole picture holistically. Because the one thing that we've really worked hard at the last few years is not having to go back and fix mistakes of the past. We've spent a lot of years fixing mistakes. Whatever we do, we want to do it once and do it right. Like we're going to fix our streets, we're going to do it once and get it right and be done with it. You know, it takes sacrifice. But if we can all kind of work together, I think, and come up with some good solutions and see, maybe we can find a happy medium, or maybe we say, hey, let's jump for it and do it. But let's all try to do it. You know, bring your best ideas to the table here and we'll listen, because I'm totally open. But I just think it's a beautiful amenity that I don't want to see go bye-bye. And but I also know that, remember, that kind of feature doesn't need to make money. When I say bring in money, I don't mean being profitable. I mean sustain the operations. And that's what we as public servants are supposed to do with your tax dollars, is to make sure that we have something in place so that we can sustain it, not make money. Okay, I'm sorry. Commissioner Hardy, sorry for that.
It's okay. I just want to amplify Peggy's comments, because if I were a citizen and I, was present at the last meeting that we had about this, at which Bob presented, and if I was present at the budget workshop meeting in which William mentioned, without the context, that the city manager just offered, that the building was condemned when he came in, and if I was here today, I would have some serious questions about which information do I trust and which information do I find reasonable. I just wanted to, I guess, to me it seems like the questions that were being answered by Mr. Stewart are different questions than the ones that Bob answered. I think Bob seemed to answer a broader set of questions. What could we do here in this space, and about how much would that cost us? And he presented us with a range of possibilities that weren't really the focus of this study. And Mr. Stewart said as such. And on that, about how big, what should be the scope of our attention on this issue? Pam, you kind of drove it home. There's fixing the pool, there's fixing what's there, and then there's fixing the business model, which might require some other things. So this, to me, appears to be the most basic thing that we can do to get the pool open. And I can tell you right now, I'm not averse to doing what's here in this report just to get the pool open again. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't have a larger conversation about what to do with the pool to make sure that we're getting to the point where it's more sustainable than it is currently. So that's those are my thoughts.
Commissioner Amoroso?
Okay, so let's talk about the money you had mentioned briefly about we just started budget conversation. Most of the people in this room did not hear us have the budget conversation. They may or may not have heard that, with the pool open, we guesstimate that we'll lose about $600,000 a year. With the pool closed, we guesstimate that we're going to lose about $300,000 a year. So I'm not opposed to doing this, or like Ms. Mann had mentioned, doing this, but maybe adding on to it to help the business model. And again, the mayor had mentioned we're not out to make money, but any project, and I've said it from day one, the project has been thawed, and it should at least break even. Because if it doesn't break even, you as a taxpayer are paying for it. You're subsidizing it. And some people use the pool, some people don't. But if we're looking at this piece, and it came back better than we thought it would have been, but we still need to look at doing some overhaul on the entire building and, bringing it up to today's date, maybe putting a little bit more retail in there to offset the $300,000 loss that the pool will have, because at the end of the day, it doesn't need to make money. It doesn't mean it couldn't make money, but with the proper marketing and, again, the front of the building, you see nothing. It's a brick wall. You should be looking at the beautiful beach that we have. If you're at the pool, you should be able to look out at the beach. Or there should be some upstairs retail, or farther down on the side, there should be additional retail. There's still so much missing from the beach complex. It's a beautiful destination, but it needs to be, modernized. It needs more. If we're going to do anything additional, why not, spend a little bit more money and do it, right? But then going back to the money, is this something that we can spend penny sales tax on, or have a conversation about spending penny sales tax? Because I fought hard to get the penny sales tax for additional infrastructure, and to me, this would fall into infrastructure. I think my direction to the city manager.
Yes, sir, Commissioner. It's my understanding that we believe that this could. We'd have to get a final, based on your direction, determination on that specifically, but it's our sense that it probably does.
Because we're going to struggle under this budget to, balance the budget. But if we're able to use a penny sales tax, I think that's a conversation we need to have, because it's a fix that we already have there. We've already gotten our first installment of the penny sales tax. It's up to a 10-year program. So I think that's one quick way of identifying funds to move forward with whatever we decide from the dais.
Vice Mayor?
Did Commissioner Robinson want to speak first?
He didn't see his hand.
I'm listening to you.
I didn't.
Your hand was up before.
Was it? I was scratching.
Was it? And you just is it an auction, and you just bought $1,000
Let me.
lamp.
Thank you. What did I just buy?
$1,000 lamp.
Great. My wife will be so pleased. I don't even know where to begin with this conversation. First of all, I pretty much agree with all that's been said from the dais this evening. I certainly agree with the mayor and Commissioner Hardy and Commissioner Amoroso just a little bit. Just kidding. Look, you used the word trust, Commissioner Hardy. That's where I'm at. The mayor referenced earlier that I'd been here through this whole process of the reconstruction, the rebuild, if you will, of the casino building, and the financing that went into it, and the manipulation of numbers and facts and figures to create that casino building, which ultimately was a failed business model, as I said it was before it was even the first scoop of dirt was ever turned. This pool has been used as a political pawn. It's been prostituted in some ways. To say that this building was condemned, to, do some of the things that happened, and, I'm flabbergasted that we're at this conversation, because it does come down to trust. Because there are so many conflicting perspectives of what it's going to cost to bring this bad boy back to life. I would like to see a pool up there, but again, we all know I'm very much concerned about the huge financial losses. I think the only way we're going to be able to wrap our arms around the issue of trust going forward is to do exactly what we've heard here this evening and take a holistic look at what we're going to do up there. I think we don't have the luxury of addressing the pool as a standalone issue. Many of you tonight have said, well, it's a lack of marketing. Some of you have suggested that it's a lack of the view, whatever the case may be. Well, if we fix all of these things, let's just say you're correct, that you're absolutely correct, and I'm not saying you're not correct, then what we're going to have here is, by your own words, an influx, an increase in the number of people that are going to use the pool. If we increase the hours, by the comments I'm hearing, we're going to increase the usage. If we do the marketing, we're going to increase the usage. But what happens then is we have an unintended consequence. That is, we have a parking problem already on the beach. So by bringing more people to this pool, it only exasperates, on some levels, the parking. Okay? Then you have the issue of, okay, we fix this for, let's just say the engineering study is correct, and we'll call it $600,000, keep it nice and easy, an even number. So we put $600,000 in it. We're still faced with hundreds of thousands of dollars of loss each year, which is not sustainable. So I just want to say that I think that what we really need to do, and I think we've kind of touched on this even before tonight, is we want to make sure that you have access to a swimming pool, but I think we need to take a look at that entire site and see what we need to do to make it whole, to provide a pool for you that is available to you, that is sustainable from a financial standpoint, as well as fix the flaws in the business model as far as the casino building is concerned. Some people have suggested that we just go ahead and, to fill our void financially is just to go ahead and increase the parking revenue, or the parking rates. That's not a good idea, because if you do that, then some people will stop coming to the beach. If they stop coming to the beach, then we potentially dig ourselves a deeper financial hole. So we've got to strike that balance, and that's, so I am in complete support of looking at a holistic approach to, coming up with something that is acceptable and embraced by the entire community. Thank you.
Commissioner Robinson?
I would love to see a family-friendly pool, not necessarily that size, that location, and I'm not interested in putting more than $500,000 and getting the same thing. Marketing something that I'm embarrassed about with the bathhouses and is a reason why we didn't market it, because it's embarrassing to me. The bathhouses, the inside of the bathhouses are unfriendly. I don't want to spend $500,000 without addressing the whole property. The casino building is in need of a redo because of its design and lack of certain things, storage, office space, parking, amenities. So I'd like to talk about spending more than the cost of the casino building originally to be an attraction to and be proud of, have the city of Lake Worth be proud of our property up there. It's a unique and wonderful asset, and it's in need of more than just the pool refurbishment. And I'm really not interested in just pouring money into this existing pool.
Commissioner Amoroso?
And just to piggyback on the vice mayor with parking, we already know that our parking brings in $1.6 million a year. And I've had the conversation that, in a perfect world, that building, that complex would pay for itself, but we use the parking to pay for it. So unfortunately, there is a certain amount that we have to charge for parking. And we struggle with future budgets where they guesstimate based on what we're spending today, what maintenance that was not included would cost. So, we have residents looking for additional residential parking that we can't furnish. So if we were to include some kind of additional parking structure, maybe put solar on the top of it, maybe, include some kind of a party facility. If you Google, green parking structures in Miami, they're beautiful. You don't even know they're there. And, it's a revenue source. As we move forward with our budget, we continuously look for revenue sources. And this, unfortunately, the city of Lake Worth, being 7 square miles, doesn't have a lot of options for revenue source. And then, moving forward on the actual cost, were permitting and all that included in your overall cost, Mr. Stewart?
Yes, we included a percentage for engineering fees, and then the construction costs included the contract.
For the record.
Yes, the cost estimate includes a percentage for engineering design, as well as a percentage for the contractor's bonds, insurance, and permit fees.
Okay, so for a little over cost, if we average that out, like Vice Mayor said, 600,000, we should be good. And then if we look moving forward, looking on other options.
Yes, as long as permitting is not substantial coastal construction control line issues, but keeping within the footprint of the existing facilities.
Okay, and then, moving forward, this is something, city manager, that I think we need to move quickly. I don't want to wait another 2 or 3 years to, talk about, the options of a project, I think, we need to get the pool open as soon as possible, and if it means, adding to the footprint to, help the financial issues, but I think it's something we need to do quickly. We had talked originally, if we were just to do this plan, it would probably be at least a year. So, what does, a fast track moving forward? I think you're getting a good direction from here. We've heard from the people. But again, I don't want to, let's look at the penny sales tax, let's look at our other options, if there are any other options for financing, and, try to work it quickly.
Commissioner Hardy?
Yeah. So something that's been discussed, the last few comments is that, we have a pool that as it exists, if it, were to be opened, if we were to spend the $500,000 or so that it would take to get the pool open as it currently exists, we'd lose some six-figure sum, as we have been losing some six-figure sum annually at the pool. And it seems to me that none of us up here have the appetite to do that, and that we want to do something to change the business model at the pool, so that it could potentially come to a break-even point. I just want to be very clear that every additional dollar that we spend to take the pool to another place that it's not, to add extra things there, to add extra features that we think might bring in additional revenue, we need to, I think, seriously entertain the possibility that revenue doesn't materialize. I'm not saying that it does, but if I'm a business person and I'm spending money, I am discounting the revenue that I think I'm going to get based on the risk profile of the project that I'm undertaking. And that's just basic finance. It's just, basic economics. And so, I think we need to seriously consider, okay, yes, we could sink $500,000 into this pool and then lose a six-figure sum, and that's unpalatable. But we also need to have an idea of what risk means and what that looks like. And just because we spend the money to upgrade the pool as it is now, doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to get the outcome that we want. And so the answer is probably somewhere in the middle. And so, also, it's pretty clear to me, based on conversations that I've had with lots of people who currently use the pool, that people aren't looking for more retail at our beach. We have a nice beach that has some retail, well, not necessarily some retail, but that has, some restaurants, and we've got seafood, we've got ice cream, we've got pizza, we've got a ballroom that will be open. We don't necessarily want our beach to be Fort Lauderdale Beach. And so, I think as we go forward and we look at some of the things that we want to do at the pool, if we upgrade it, I don't think we should be considering adding more retail. I think it should focus on, the aquatic experience of going to a pool. Yeah, that's just my opinion. So.
I think the best thing to do is anyone who wasn't at our last budget meeting, to take a look and make yourself familiar with that last meeting where we actually talked about the casino business plan, and kind of take a good look at that so you can see where we're at. The issue is that we've initially planned to pay the city back $500,000 a year. We've only been paying the city back $262,000 a year. I think somewhere around those numbers. We have a modeler that shows, with the incomes coming in and going out, it shows basically that we'll blow through our reserves, so that we won't be able to, unless we forgive the loan from the city, we'll be going under on the business model shortly. So the business model has to be addressed. I mean, this is not something we can't stick our heads in the sand and say it's not going to go away. We all love I love the pool too. But if we're going to do this, let's come up with a business plan where maybe retail isn't the right application. There were other plans. I remember when I moved to Lake Worth in, goodness gracious, 96. And people then were talking about, there was a million people talking about building, what they were going to build on the beach and what they were going to do. And when the plan finally came around, this last plan, before it became the final version, the pool building was included with it. And there was a whole renovation of the pool building and the casino building. But as they continued on and they started to change certain facts about it, they pretty much took the pool out of that plan. So all I remember there is being a newly elected mayor and looking and saying, but what about the pool building? It's a nice building, but what about the pool? I mean, it looked like the little poor child sitting next to it that was just run down and ramshackle. It was supposed to be part of that. And I remember some of the pictures that I saw back then. It had a second story along the back. The back piece was open, and there was an entrance of some kind of way. They made an entrance by the beach so that you could see it. It kept part of the building. These are just, I'm really stretching my memory here. They kept part of that pool building, and they had an arch or something like that. And then there was an opening so that people can come up from the parking lot in the back, which I remember, which was really convenient to the pool area. And I remember there were kiosks and things that were around, like people could sell different things, almost like in a mall, you have them in the middle. They were sort of like outdoor kiosks. And there was an additional one, a lower floor and a top floor space. I don't know if that was, do you guys remember if it was like lifeguard space and office space or whatever it was? But it took into, first of all, you guys can't work in a closet anymore. You know, you can't work in a space that's going to be rented out to someone soon. So we have to take some very real matters into effect. And it's best to do them all at the same time because it saves the city money and you money. But can we? I think looking at the sales tax, I guess, is one thing about it. The only thing stopping us from rebuilding the pool is money.
Madam Mayor?
Yeah.
Just a couple of things I wanted to kind of clarify, and then I'll see if I can get some kind of a general direction. I know that there seems to be, and there were some statements about confusion among the different statements and the different reports. And if you look at the reports, actually, Mr. McAllister's report and Kimley Horn's report aren't that different. Bob was brought in as a aquatics facility expert. He's not an engineer, he's not all those things. And we asked him to come in and look at the operations and some of the things we're experiencing. We had heard about the drains weren't up to federal standards, the Virginia Broom Act, all these other things. And we're seeing liability. So we said, let's do an assessment of the facility by somebody who's in the business. And Bob approached that report with that in mind, looking at it from a operator standpoint, looking at current standards and codes. And we also asked him, well, if we're going to spend this money that you've identified for these deficiencies, would you do that or would you build something different? What's the market want? Bob was very much about trying to look at a facility that people would use in numbers that would warrant an investment. So yeah, he gave you some prices of concepts and ideas that other people are doing, 4.6 million and everything else, and everybody went, but it was just to show what the market's doing right now. The Kimley Horn report basically said these deficiencies exist in these same areas, but we're engineers. And you know what? The pool, it's not cracking and falling apart. The building is actually, but we're recommending this $500,000+ to reboot it to its 1971 configuration and operation kind of mode. It's not a business choice. It's not a market choice. And I think that was to those comments. So the two reports aren't dissimilar. They're just coming from a different standpoint. So I just want to clarify that so that people don't think we're getting all kinds of data points here. But those report data points, we believe that y'all should have, both from an aquatics expert as well as an engineer. So it's helpful.
If you look at the coastal construction line, just looking at the report of that, if you're talking about adding office space for the staff or creating different things, knowing that, I know that we've talked about having a big opening at the front, but knowing that deleting that portion of the building, you'd never be able to build it back again.
Correct.
So from when you have this, to keep those things in mind too, if we look at enhancing the space in any way to suit the needs of staff and whatnot.
But then you ask the question too, is that space, the size and configuration suitable for the types of amenities that people want in a pool facility, such as the number of toilets and their square footage,
Right.
the shower stalls. I'm not sure all the latest things that people who go to pool facilities would want. Could you even fit it in that structure, given its constraints? And
But that size could be reconfigured.
potentially,
If
yeah.
you just look at it as raw space,
But
forget what's in it
I'm-
now.
And again, I'm not getting into
Right.
future details. I was just trying to make a differentiation between the two different approaches, the two different studies, but to tell you they're looking at the same thing and they really do jive. The other thing is, people have repeatedly said that marketing is a solution to the revenue issue at the pool. And there's not an economy of scale with the pool business the way it's currently configured at this pool. The more activity you add in this pool, the more staff you have to add, and you're constantly chasing a curve. 29 hours was a lot of commitment from the city to staff it, to operate it, and we would hope we would get enough people. But even if you filled the pool to capacity, you're not going to offset those costs because you have to add an extra lifeguard every so many. And it's one of those things, you're chasing your tail. The limiting factor is not marketing to get more people in the pool. It's the pool itself, the way it's configured and what it takes to run it currently is such a monster. It's not controllable. It grows and your cost grows. So I think that's something else that Bob kind of pointed out. But people seem to think if we just marketed the pool better and get more people using the pool, somehow that's going to generate enough revenue to offset the costs. And I don't know that that's a valid statement.
It's not.
So I would really look at that closely. So going forward, I'm kind of hearing from y'all that you're interested in honestly bringing in some design professionals to actually look at the information that's been generated, to look at the experience, what kind of experience that you would want in that pool. And that's some of that talk about what the market wants, what surveys and talking, community discussion about what people want to support in this community. What does this thing look like and how does it function?
I think, yes, you're on the right track, but yet I can't foresee any type of discussion about that without knowing from a business standpoint what any renovation there, I mean, like, we know that if we renovate right now and do $500,000 worth of construction, it doesn't solve our business model, but it gets the pool open, correct? It puts us even further in
We
debt.
think those figures are a little low, but yes.
But it puts us further in debt in regards to how much we're behind. We could look at other funding for that. We need to have a conversation as to what everyone wants to do. Do they want to look at the whole thing as a part of a business plan, get the pool open, and create a business model that works so that we can keep the pool open
But
in perpetuity? Or do we want to just, we haven't decided that as a board.
What I was suggesting is, if you want me to move forward with this consultant concept, that they would be the ones leading us through that.
Well,
Because-
I think we need to hear from the people and find out what we, put a plan together that the community wants. Commissioner Robinson? you have-
I don't know what our calendar looks like, but, I'd certainly like to continue this conversation and not have a consultant tell us about another pool. If we're going to hire somebody to redesign anything, it needs to be the whole property to include a pool. But we know that I'm embarrassed by the fact that we have a building that is underperforming in its present state and location that should be very much sought after, and it isn't, because the second floor is, do we have an agreement to finish the construction of the first building? Do we?
Well, no, there's not. We know the deficiencies of.
Well, then we
of
need to
this
sue
consent.
the contractor for the first building and move on to fix the whole complex, which would include a pool. the aquatics part of it, I think the desirability of a family-friendly pool, it doesn't have to be an aquatic center or have a huge plastic entrance into it. But this seems to be simple to me, that we have something and it's just not what it should be. And if we're going to hire anybody, I would like to hire an architect that can give us a fantastic property that we're proud of. The city is now, addressing the future. We're becoming a desirable place to live, and if we just nickel and dime into this pool and maybe a room for a lifeguard and a room for tables, that's not where I want to go. And I don't know what next week looks like, but how about the next week? And maybe we ought to have a charrette in between or before we go too far. I certainly want to talk about spending. I'd like to talk about spending all the penny sales tax on the beach property. So we've got something that we need to really focus on, and not just go back to the what was and what should have been. And we need to look at being a desirable beach property.
Thank you. Commissioner Hardy?
Yeah. Insofar as this conversation relates to the conversation we're going to have in late July on the penny sales tax, I'd just like to say that in Lake Worth we have a range of infrastructural priorities here in the city. I understand that we passed the bond, but we have other needs that are related to our infrastructure. And insofar as we're roping this into that conversation, we need to keep those needs in mind. In addition to that, in my opinion, any designs that we get for any kind of major upgrades or changes at the pool need to come along with an opinion that is rigorously derived, that tells us how much in revenue we expect these upgrades to get. I think that's really, really important. And, if we're going to talk about addressing the business model of the pool, then we need to think like a business person thinks about capital investments that they make. And that's, pretty much it. This has been a very interesting report. I think this report answered different questions than a narrower range of questions than the one that Bob did for us. And I appreciate the work that the engineers from Kimley Horn did.
Commissioner Robinson, your follow-up?
Well, the pool is, we have to recognize that we're not, stop talking about revenue at the pool. Yes, it's going to bring in money, but it's going to enhance the whole property. The restaurants, maybe we might have more restaurants that are going to be, the pool is going to be an attraction to those restaurants, whether anybody goes swimming there or not. That's what I would like to see, not a gymnasium type pool. I would like to see an attractive tropical pool that you can swim in, you can do laps in, but it doesn't have to be striped and have a finish line at it. It's not 1971 anymore.
Vice Mayor?
A couple of quick comments. I want to make sure that I'm clear. I think what I'm hearing here this evening is that, generally speaking, we were looking for a total solution to that footprint up there with the casino building, the pool front, as far as fixing the existing business model and moving forward with whatever we may need to do going forward with the pool or whatever. But there's one thing I want to point out, and this is a statement and kind of a question to the engineer. With respect to the numbers that you threw out today, my recollection of how the law works with respect to the coastal construction control line is that once a project gets to a certain value, dollar value, of the value of the project, then all bets are off. You've got to bring that bad boy up to standard. Is that correct?
Yes, that's a Florida building code requirement.
So my question to you is, do the numbers that you gave us tonight, does that factor that in? Because my sense is that by the time you start putting all that money into what's east of the coastal construction control line, we may be in a situation where we may have to actually upgrade the entire facility.
Double it.
As long as the function of the building, as long as the occupancy of the building hasn't changed, the owner is allowed to continue to maintain and repair that facility.
But my understanding was that the value of those repairs and what do you want to call it, upgrades, or for lack of, maybe that's not the right word, but if it gets that 50% mark, I believe it is, then you have to bring everything up to 2017 standards. Is that correct? Exactly.
But that includes the food that we're not.
The rule you're referring to, the 50% rule, is for the total market value of the entire property you're upgrading. Remember, not all the upgrades are east of the CCCL line. You don't divide it up by which side of the line the upgrade or the repair is on. It's the entire facility. Your pool deck alone is worth a lot more than that, just in pavers. So when you take into account the full value of the entire facility, these repairs is a fraction of what the entire repair cost would be.
So you're saying that
We're well below 50%.
you're well below, and we're not going to have to worry about that.
Correct.
So we're not going to have conversations about pilings or anything else,
Right.
potentially.
Your pool isn't sinking, your pavers aren't sinking. We're talking about plumbing and fixtures and roof
Okay,
coverings.
that's the question I wanted to have answered. Thank you.
Thank you. And then what do we also, what is the policy, Christy? I didn't see anything on, because I've been approached about a couple of things. What if people wanted to donate to the city for the pool? Yes, I've heard some people offering to donate towards the pool.
I think the position that we've taken in the past is that if you want to donate to the city, you're welcome to, and we'll certainly give you a letter that says thank you for your donation. But then we sort of leave it up to them to get with their tax attorney or their CPA to determine if it's a tax deductible deduction.
Would that money then go towards what their desired
Yes,
item
and
in the city
that's
was?
the requirement on our side, is if they attach strings to their donation and say this needs to go to the pool, then we would follow those strings attached to the donation.
And what about naming rights?
That's a policy that we have, that we've been looking at. And we can certainly bring that forward for the commission's consideration in terms of if we have a substantial donor that we want to name something after, whether it's the pool or any facility.
Well, if there's anyone listening at home and you want to donate to our new pool,
function of zeros.
I'm making the plea now. Feel free. We'll take 1 mil, 2, 3, whatever. No, I'm kidding. Thank you very much, Christy. I appreciate it. And thank you to all. Good conversation today, and thank you all for coming out. We're going to be bringing it back before another meeting. You'll have plenty more public input on it, and we'll figure out what we need to do, and let's make this thing work. Thank you all very much.
Well, can we talk about a date for a charrette? Can we talk about our next meeting to talk specifically about?
Commissioner Robinson, hold on a second. Yeah, go ahead.
About the cost of an architect to include a pool in the needs of the casino building? Can we move forward with something other than?
Yeah, we'll go ahead and craft the RFQ or the RFP for this task and get that to you, and we can get it out on the street and see what these things are valued at.
And I would encourage each and every one of you commissioners too to meet with the city manager and staff to try to put, you know, what you'd like to see or whatever together too, so you can start to kind of brainstorm a little bit, and then we'll bring it back before everybody again and we'll talk some more.
And my favorite question to him is
When?
We have to schedule it.
Tomorrow.
We'll have to schedule it.
He'll have to schedule it. He'll have to schedule it. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Seconded.
All those in favor state so by saying aye. Aye. Commissioner Robinson?
Nay.
Nay. Motion carries 4-1.